As we're surveying prophetic literature, visionary literature, the literature of the prophets, we find some interesting actions that are taken by the prophet themselves. They live out God's message. We're going to call it emblematic action, and here's my simple definition of that. It is action rather than words. The prophets had plenty to say, but in this case, they are communicating through action in order to draw attention to God's message. So it would tend to be rather dramatic. And then once you had people's attention, you could deliver God's message to his people. So you can imagine that you are walking down the road, and even if you're the most cynical and skeptical person among the Jews, the actions of this prophet on the road ahead are so intriguing, so odd, so weird, that you got to pull aside and you got to stop and look and then ask yourself, what is he doing that for? That's the purpose of emblematic action. It's going to stop the skeptic and make him listen to the message of God. Let me give you some examples then. Here's Jeremiah. Jeremiah, at one point, days or weeks before Jerusalem falls and everything is owned then by Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon, he goes and purchases land. He probably got it at a great discount because he wasn't going to own it for very long. But he went and purchased the land and then buried the title deed. And people ask, so why did you do that? And his answer was, because God's promises, after this time of judgment and captivity, land will one day again be bought and sold in Israel. It's a promise. Another one, counting the judgment of Israel, Jeremiah went and bought a new loincloth, in some translation, linen belt in others, but he buries it, and the loincloth is no longer clean. It suffers the indignities of the dirt, and it loses its usefulness. Like Israel, it's a message of judgment. So that's Jeremiah. Ezekiel had an even tougher time. He was told to go and live like an exile, have his bags packed, and travel with those bags ready to go. He was to lay on one side and then on another for part of his message. And the worst one was, God said he's going to send God's people into judgment because of their sin, and he's not even going to be sad about it. And Ezekiel, this is the way you will picture that. Tomorrow, your wife will die. And I want you to walk around and act as if everything is fine, so that people ask, why aren't you mourning? And your answer will be, because God is not going to mourn when he casts you off. I don't think I want the job as a prophet. That sounds just a little harsh, but it's a awakening. It's trying to get through the hardness of Israel's heart to give them an opportunity to repent. So we have Jeremiah, we have Ezekiel, then there is Hosea. Hosea is called into prophetic ministry, and his emblematic action, he is told to go and marry a prostitute. You can imagine trying to carry out that command. And he goes and marries a woman named Gomer. He has children by Gomer, and one at least of the children's names indicate the child is not actually Hosea's. He's living out what it means for God's people to be unfaithful to God. And he's living it out in a most troubling way, not for a day or a week, but it's gonna mar his life. His love for this prostitute is one day going to have him go down and buy her back from slavery. She's fallen back into her old ways, back into slavery, and he goes and buys her out, leads her out into the desert, speaks tenderly to her, and says he hopes to restore the years. and to turn the valley of Achor, the valley of judgment, into a door of hope. So Hosea is living out the message that God has in judgment and in a promise of hope for God's people. So here are the elements again, just to review what emblematic action is. It is symbolic action, but it is dramatic, and its point is there's a message from God that is being acted out that will cause people to stop and listen and hopefully penetrate through their hardness of heart in order that they might repent. Thanks for hanging out.